Woohoo! That was great. Oh, good evening, everyone. That wonderful music was or is a No Bridge Too Far by the award-winning Canadian East Coast folk trio, the East Pointers. The musicians are Tim Chason, Cody Chason, Jake Sharon. CD is What We Leave Behind, and we're putting the info in the chat box. And before we go any further, I just want to say we are all collectively sending thoughts of safety to all our Northern Californian friends. I know as a whole community, our thoughts are with you. So we're all hoping for the best in that. I just wanted to say something. Hi, I'm Darlene Hamilton, and we are the Historical Tea and Dance Society. We have Lindsay Verbal assisting with the program, handling media and our attendee questions. Questions are an important part of this talk, and so is the chat box. So if you're on Zoom, please open the chat box if you haven't already. Lindsay will be pointing to a likely place where it is, or look for the circle with 3 dots if you haven't already found that. And that's how to bring that up. And on Facebook, open up until you see the chat. Sometimes you have to double click on it to get the chat box running on the side. On Zoom, we have Renee Turner monitoring Zoom for questions and posting in our Zoom meeting. Hi. And we have Larry Hansen monitoring Facebook Live for chats and posting. Hi. Oops. I think, there we go. Everybody's there. Sorry, I had it on the wrong view. Hi, everyone. So good to have you with us tonight. We always love having the team together. Want to give a shout out, of course, to Karen Axelrod for her concert every Tuesday, an hour prior to our, well, it ends an hour prior, so it's 2 hours prior on Facebook, live every Tuesday. So make sure you're tuning into that. Well, I'm looking forward to tonight's talk. Let me go into a bio. Olivia Barry, she started dancing before she was born and hasn't stopped since. She dances English country, contra, Irish traditional step dance, Appalachian flat-footing, English clog, plus more than 10 other styles of dance and teaches many of them. She has a master's degree in ethnochoreology, which is the study of dance movement systems through the lens of culture, society, and history. And we will be talking more about this tonight, for sure. She's currently earning a PhD from the Irish World Academy of Music and Dance, which is part of the University of Limerick, by exploring the creative processes in contemporary English country dance. So if you didn't know why we wanted her on before, now you do. Like so many others in our community, Olivia dances at the John C. Campbell Folk School in Brasstown, North Carolina. Please welcome Olivia Barry. It's so good to have you with us.
Hey everybody. All right, so I'd like to begin by thanking Darlene and Renee and everybody and Lindsay. Oh my gosh, thank you guys so much for inviting me, but also for all the hard work that you've done to help keep our communities alive through conversation and discussion. I think it's an absolute honor to be here today. So I'd like to go
Oh,
ahead and dive on in and
thank you. Let me put
oh,
up the.
of course.
She's
Yes.
raring to go.
I'm so excited. I've been looking forward to this for so many weeks.
That's great. Well, thing one, because otherwise people will be complaining. Why didn't we see the title? Thing one, for the love of the music.
All
Here we
right.
go.
So I'd like to begin by briefly discussing the introduction to all of my things. So they all start with the same introductory phrase of "for the love of." And a wonderful dance friend, mentor, and teacher to me was recently discussing this concept of these common things that we all possess as humans that allow us to survive in this world and to really just to live. And the few things that people think of course, are air and food and water and a roof over our heads. All of these things are essential to us being able to live, of course. And there's a fourth thing that we don't always think of, and that fourth thing is something that is beautiful. And that is something that he's thought about for quite some time. And I like to add this element of a greater sense of purpose to something that is beautiful. And for me, as I've ventured through life and experienced different activities and relationships and experiencing the world around me, what I've come to find is that the most beautiful thing in my life has been English country dance. And so I'd like to share 5 different things as to why I love it, that range in a wide variety of topics and experiences. And so the first one is for the love of music, because that's really what started my love for dance and for people and a bunch of the different things that we're going to be discussing tonight. But of course, I invite you to think about how this topic relates to your journey and your experience through English country dance. So I'd like to go ahead and pull up my first picture, which is a picture of John C. Campbell Folk School. It's specifically the Keith House, which is the main room where we gather for dances. And for those of you that haven't had the opportunity to venture the folk school or have never heard of it, it is a traditional arts and crafts, music and dance school located in the heart of the Appalachian Mountains, Brasstown, North Carolina. And over 800 classes are offered there every single year in crafts such as blacksmithing and weaving and everything in between. And students will come for a week, they'll come for a weekend, and they enjoy a community that is all about community. And so I was actually raised during the summer relative to this area because my grandparents actually have a close relationship with the folk school, and as my mom, who took art classes with different teachers at the folk school growing up. So my sister and I were raised in the summer there, and we would attend different offerings at the folk school, which was really integral to my experiences with different arts and activities, but most importantly with dance. And so there's this thing called the Fall Festival that's offered at the folk school every single year with 200 different craft vendors that will come from all over the East Coast, mostly North Carolina, and they'll share their offerings for people that are interested in purchasing them and enjoying food, craft, and a bunch of different things. And a big part of the Fall Festival is performances and the opportunity to join in with music, song, and of course dance. And we're going to dive more into the dancing later, but very briefly, I was introduced to Morris dancing at the folk school at a very young age. And that was quite integral to my first part of dancing, which is in Irish dancing, which we'll also talk about. But what's really cool about Morris dancing is how it's always been there in my life, but it wasn't until a little bit later that I really started to participate in it. So at a young age, I was watching Morris dancing on stage, and we can pull up that second photo, which is actually me kind of dancing with my aunt at a fall festival. It's kind of like, I guess, my version as a young child learning how to move my feet to music. It was actually kind of cute. I found this in an old album, but this was relatively after watching the Morris dancers. As you can see, I'm holding hands and trying to figure out what to do with my feet. And I think that's something that my parents noticed very early on. And they had friends at the time that had put their children in ballet and Irish dance. And my parents decided to do the same thing with me because I already had a sense of movement and like wanting to really just move along with music and tap my feet and just move around. And it was quite wonderful. I don't really remember it. I was very young, but at least that's how I was told that this story goes. Anyway, so a big part of my dance career started in training in Irish dance and ballet, and specifically I would go to competitions from a very young age up until the point where I just decided that it was no longer fun. And what I really took away from the experience in Irish dance was the community aspect of the Céilí dance, even beyond the competition days, because those were so fun to, stand up in an 8-hand or a square with your friends, and as soon as this amazing piano accordion music just turns on and you're all standing there and you hear the right downbeat and you all take hands and you do a strong slipping circle to the left. There's nothing more powerful than that. And so I noticed that that was my favorite part of Irish dance. It was really fun to compete, to be on stage and to demonstrate what I had learned, whether it was, an individual, heavy shoe dance or whatever. That was really eye-opening for me as somebody that was learning to move for myself, within myself. But I didn't really understand the difference between, moving by myself and with others until I really had the opportunity to examine that relationship between music and dance in Céilí dancing. And I noticed that because the music in Céilí dance, it tells you something about the dance. It tells you how to move. And it also doesn't tell you things, and you have to be aware of that. And I think that's the most important part because for me, Céilí dancing at a very young age, I felt this energy as soon as the music that would turn on, that would like swell to like the bottom of my feet and start to rise through the top of my head because it was just like, this is right. And it was only more powerful because I got to do it with my friends and with people watching it and wishing that they could be there too. So fast forwarding a little bit, eventually I did stop competing. I ventured through different dance forms because it was no longer fun. And my teacher actually told my mom several times, she's like, pull her out as soon as she's not having fun because otherwise it's going to ruin that image of dance for her later on. And thankfully it didn't. Thankfully I continued to pursue social dance, community-based dancing, because that's what's most near and dear to my heart. Even though I do love percussive step dancing by myself, I really love community-based dancing the most. So fast forwarding a few years to my introduction to country dance. I'm going to say country dance because there are so many different dance traditions within that general term. and that's something we're going to dive into a little bit later when we mention history. But when I first did contra dance, there was something that kind of clicked. I was like, oh yeah, this feels like home. This feels like something different. It wasn't Kaylee. Of course, there were different formations and music and teachers and a bunch of different things involved. But that was my first fresh breath of community dance after that competitive phase was gone. And so I started to think, okay, what are the possibilities within this? So I started to venture out, and once I turned 18, I could actually go to dance weekends and dance camps. So the first one I went to was John C. Campbell Folk School Winter Dance Week, which I have to say is probably my favorite dance week ever. If you haven't had the chance to go, I I hope that for everyone here that's listening that you have the chance to. It's a week long of music, song, dance, food, hanging out with your friends. You don't sleep, but you eat a lot, and it's so much fun. And that's my first taste, I think, of English country dance that I'm going to describe now. So my very first winter dance week was kind of odd. I had seen everyone there either through Facebook or pictures. I had heard about them. It was my first time really immersing myself into the greater dance community outside of just people at my local dances. And that was really interesting because there were two people that we all know and love, Rachel Bell and Karen Axelrod. And throughout my first winter dance week, they would play this tune during one of the breaks. And they would play the same tune after lunch every single day. And I was like, okay, either this is a really difficult tune and they just need the practice, or something that they really, really enjoy to play. And I started to notice that, and I was like, okay, like maybe I'll hear it later this week, maybe people will get to dance, but not yet. So, for one of the classes that was being offered was actually an advanced English country dance class. And one of my first teachers, Carl Dreyer, told me that I needed to go. He didn't ask me, he told me that I would be going. And I thought, looking back on it, it's so funny because I have never thought of myself as an experienced or an advanced English country dancer. And at that time, certainly not. I knew the figures, I felt competent with basic timing and things like that, but I would never consider myself somebody that would put themselves in an advanced course. But it was the last day and I thought, hey, I'm gonna try it. I'm gonna see what it's like. So I got there, we went through the first dance. It was fine, I was a little shaky, my hands were kind of swelling up because I wasn't breathing because I didn't want to disappoint anyone around me. We all know how that is. But the second dance, I was late to getting a partner, so I asked Carl to dance with me, and I heard the tune that I've been hearing all week. The tune that Rachel and Karen had been practicing was just going over and over. We learned the dance, we danced it, and for the very first time in my life, I cried during a dance. Not because it was a competition and I was stressed and afraid. Oh my gosh, I might cry now. But I cried because it was the most beautiful, intimate moment with dance that I've ever felt in my entire life. And the whole entire room was feeling it. It was absolutely magical. And we've all felt that about one dance or many dances. And I'm so excited to feel that once again. And so this dance today is known as Moonflower, tuned by Rachel Bell and danced by Susan Kevra. So if we can go ahead and pull up that video and we can watch a few seconds of it. I love that video. That's the Atlanta English Country Dancers. I think it was for a weekend that they were doing. But again, the tune is Moonflower by Rachel Bell, and the dance is Moonflower, same name, by Susan Kevra. Wonderful example of that marriage between sound and movement. and that concert between couple and set in English country dance, which we'll touch on later. But it's just like such a wonderful representation of how this dance form is, it moves us physically, but it also moves us mentally and emotionally in so many different ways. And that personal connection that we make with the dance is something that we continue on with us as we move up and down the set. So I think that is going to lead us into thing two.
Yes, just one moment. All right, thing two, for
Mm,
the love of history.
yes. And so I've gotten a lot of feedback from some people that I've talked to about this already, but history is such a broad topic when it comes to music, song, and dance traditions. There are so many different views, and of course, this goes for anything that we are to study, any moments in history regarding even activities outside of our own. And so for me, this has been really interesting as I've kind of like dived into this field of dance research and trying to understand what parts of history have been most important to me in my research, but also to other people. Because for me, I think we're living history day by day, and we're experiencing it, simultaneously through the past and the present and the future all at once. And so, ethnochoreology, which is a program I just recently finished at the Irish World Academy of Music and Dance in Ireland, has been quite integral in my understanding of how history is not just about events and places, but it's also about people. And I have a genuine curiosity in understanding the different histories of people and how they experience the worlds around them and then the worlds within them. And I think dance allows us to experience both simultaneously. We're simultaneously experiencing this great world of people around us, but then there's also things that are happening within us. And the interpretation and the study of history really allows us to see how the past influences the present in that moment, and how dancing and space and society and all these different things all interact simultaneously. So, in ethnochoreology, it's the study of all of these different things and how we relate dance movement systems and different traditions through this lens of society and culture. And we relate the different issues in both places kind of simultaneously, and we try to look at what one is saying about the other. And I can definitely share more information about this program at the after chat, but I'd really like to just dive in on what my research through this program kind of showed me instead of just talking about the program, even though it's wonderful. And I hope that maybe some of you will have the opportunity to pursue it yourselves. So, my thesis, which was the big project that I got to walk away from with this degree and this experience, was looking at Morris dancing from Brasstown, known as Brasstown Morris. And community dancing actually has taken place at the folk school since its origination in 1925. And we can go ahead and bring up the first picture, Lindsay, if you like, so people can see it. It's a really cool picture that I found actually from the archives, and they have an extensive archive of a bunch of different pictures from different moments in time in which people enjoy community dance at the folk school. And this is from a Friday night games which would take place, and people would gather for different games and dance. And I absolutely love that picture and seeing everybody in a room that I've danced in, for a lot of my life, and of course the lives of many others. And then the second picture is just as cool too. It's outside and people are in a circle, and there's just something beautiful to be said about these living moments in history where you might not know the greater story of everyone in the picture, but you certainly know about what they're doing. And so this piqued my curiosity about Brasstown Wars because I was interested in like understanding why that tradition today, and like how is it practiced in Brasstown and how is that different from other parts of the world. And I really was interested in like this living concept of history that we have in our communities. Our communities have history, but the people do too, and sometimes they have different versions of it. And so what I was really diving into is this concept of how communities are these living archives of stories and memories that travel through time and space. And I think that's very similar to English country dance because we all have different experiences with it. We all dance for different reasons and we experience it all differently all at the same time. So Brasstown Morris is a really interesting example of this because it's a very large group of people, nearly 50 people today, including musicians and family members, and it's people of all ages all dancing together, practicing this love of Morris. So I'm going to briefly show you a picture of some of the members. Lindsay, if you want to bring it up. It's one of my favorite pictures. Let's see. Mm. Oh, there we go. Yes, so this is not everybody, but it gives you a general idea of kit, also known as the costume for everybody. So if you see the people with the rags and the blue faces, that's Sticks in the Mud Border Morris. And then kind of to the right, you can see some people with Rural Felicity Garland, and they have the nice garlands. And then, of course, the ones with the black and red dresses are Dames Rocket Northwest Clog. Now, there's also a Rapper Sword side. They're not in this picture. This happened a little bit earlier, but there are a total of 4 different sides, all with various members, and some people even dance on multiple teams. So I'd like to briefly show you guys my experience with Brasstown Morris. I actually joined in 2015. I went to college about 20 minutes down the road from this folk school at the time, and so I was there nearly every single day of the week, whether it was doing dancing or yoga or different things with that. So the first team that I joined was Rural Felicity Garland. And I love this picture. There's 4 of us there, and we have the coolest kits, all handmade by everyone on the team. And this is the very first side that I joined. And looking back on it, it's actually one of my most favorite forms, I would say, of Morris dance because there's a lot that goes into it. It's not only very elegant, but there's very intricate stepping sometimes. And you're always responsible for this garland that's hanging over your head. And that awareness of movement really shifts, I feel like, in garland dance. And of course, the music is absolutely stunning. So the second side that I joined was Dames Rockets. And they're the Northwest Clog team. And I think the next picture is when we were in England in 2017. We went for a few different festivals and we got to dance and parades. And it was the first time I'd actually been to Europe, to the UK. And I was super, super excited because I was with, of course, a second family experiencing something for the first time. But that is Dames Rockets. And then I joined and founded Rapper Magic Rapper, which is the rapper side. And they are a culmination of all of my friends. It's kind of like the young group, I guess, maybe, of some younger dancers in Brasstown that dance also on the clogging teams and some of the other Morris teams too. And so I was flying back on a plane ride from Pinewoods after doing rapper for basically a week, and I was like, we need to rejuvenate the rapper in our community. And I called up as many friends as I could, and sure enough, a few weeks later we had a rapper side, and it was an absolute delight. And I'm so glad that they continue to do it to this day. Not to this day, they're obviously not practicing now, but up until our current circumstances, they were practicing and they were getting ready for Dart, of course. And I think one of the most important parts of this group was being able to share that talent with everyone else. So I think for me, the most important part of doing this research and like understanding how my participation in this group, it really affects like this bigger story and this bigger history and how our communities are actively living through it and discussing different stories and living, I guess, this movement through time. And it's really interesting to see how what you can learn about your community if you just sit down for a little bit and you really talk to people, because I learned so much that I didn't even realize was there. Things you can't even learn on the internet, but people are just a phone call away. And I think that's the most important part of history. No matter what dance, music, or song tradition that you're inspired by, any activity generally is just to sit down with people and to ask questions. And that's exactly what I did in this program. And I learned it, in a creative and also in an analytical way, which is, I think, a really unique opportunity. And I would like to encourage everyone to like think about that. Now that we have this time, think about questions that you have for your community, like what is your history and how do you intend on sharing that with people, because it's really important that we discuss it because we live it every single day.
That's great. And I happen to know that's true because every time I happen to talk to Olivia, she's always like, "Oh, I talked to Colin Hume the other day. Oh, I talked to Bruce Hamilton the other day. Oh, I talked to David Millstone the other day. Oh, I talked to." It's always somebody, and they are just out there and you know willing to chat, and
Yeah.
so that's very very cool. Um, we had several folks asking about the vintage pictures you show. Do you know what approximate years those are?
So the Friday night games, I think Bob Dulcimer's here. So if he's here and he corrects me, that would be awesome. But I'm pretty sure the Friday night games happened in the 1950s, and then the second picture happened at a relatively similar time. So I think I might need a fact check on dates. I know more of the context, I guess, to the pictures and exact dates. But yeah, Friday night games. Yeah.
Thank you. Did you want to show that other video,
Um,
or do you want to wait till later?
we can wait till later. Yeah.
All right, great. We're going to move on to thing three. Yes?
Yes, let's do it. All right. Mm,
Thing
yeah.
three, for the love of the movement.
All right. So we can go ahead and bring up the picture so everyone can see what it feels like to move. Because I think one of my favorite things during this time has been to watch videos and look at pictures of people moving, and it makes me kind of feel like I'm moving as well, and to think about it in like a different way. And this is one of my favorite pictures ever. Jeffrey Berry took this picture at Pinewoods. I think it was maybe 2018, and we are doing Fandango, and if you can see, there's an extra person in our slipping circle, so sneaky, sneaky there, but it was such a memorable moment, and I can still feel the weight of everyone's hands and their bodies on me today, and it's such a wonderful memory to reflect on. But let's dive in. So, when we talk about movement, I feel like the first thing that we tend to discuss is technique, and we talk about body mechanics, and we talk about dancing well. And I think these topics are a wonderful introduction to kind of a broader conversation on understanding individual limitations and adapting to physical, mental, emotional, and environmental changes that are happening around us and within us. And I think that when we begin the conversation on talking about the changes and the things that are actively happening with and to us, then we can begin to discuss dancing well and technique in a different way. And I've noticed that this is really hard because as a teacher, you really want to customize everything to everyone in your room while still allowing for this greater experience to take place. And how can you do this and how can that be done? But I think what it comes down to is this understanding that everyone moves differently and they move for different reasons. And so how can you begin to like craft a narrative around that as you stand on stage and you begin talking with people, especially in English country dance, because it's oftentimes assumed that we're doing a very delicate dance and it's slow and it's flowy. But if you know English country dance, you know that sometimes it can get quite rowdy and it's fun, it's boisterous, and the number one thing that we're doing is we're all, you know, being ourselves and giving ourselves permission to be ourselves and expressing who we are, but within the comforts of this greater community. And so I think when it comes to movement, we have to understand that. We have to understand the greater context of the dance, the dancers, and of course the dance event. And all of these three things are simultaneously going on during a dance. Of course, we're learning how to dance. We are a dancer and we are interacting with a bunch of different people within this context of maybe a class or a ball. But we have to think about movement on all those three layers, because when you begin to take hand in hand with somebody, you're not simply taking a hand, are you? You're They're trusting you with so much more than just a handhold. And that's why we teach people different types of handholds to adjust. And so when we talk about movement in this sense, I think it's a really interesting thought to think about how your movement is influencing others and how others are influencing you. And it's kind of giving that permission to think about that. And when we're teaching and when we're dancing, we have to actively be thinking about, okay, like this is why people are moving and this is why they're going to go in this direction. Not because you're saying maybe, but because they feel like they can. And so I've thought about this a lot these past few weeks as I haven't been moving. And I've been dancing through dances by myself and thinking about, okay, how would I explain somebody to move this way? Not from a stylistic point or for the sake of maybe getting them to dance in a certain way, but it's kind of like redefining what dancing well might be. Because we all have like a general, like really big idea of what dancing well might be. It might have to do with those stylistic points or what is a good dancer and things like that. But I think that all it comes down to is this greater understanding of how am I dancing within myself? How am I dancing with others? And how can I adapt to these subtle changes that keep going and going? Because if you know what it feels like, and we all do, to be in a dance and somebody tugs you the wrong way, or maybe something happens in the music, or the caller forgets a prompt, you're constantly having to readjust to that, and you're having to think about it in like a really different way. So I think that movement is it begins with what's happening, I think, on the inside more so than what's happening on our outside. Instead of suggesting for people to maybe stand up a little taller or to lift from the knees, I think that a lot of the movement, if we just think about it maybe more internally, it guides our external movements in a radically different way. And I think it could be difficult because you have a very limited time when you're standing at the mic and you don't want to suggest to things to people while they're in the set, of course. But it's something that you can begin to integrate maybe in yourself as you dance and thinking, okay, like how is my attitude affecting how I move about this set today? Or how is my conversation, leading to people to dance and to feel the freedom to move in a certain way, especially if it's within their own comforts and their own limitations. And so I think that's like a really interesting thought as we go about like re-entering this dancing process of how our internal states greatly influence and affect what's happening around us. Because we do affect the people around us, of course, in our thoughts and our words, but also just by our presence and our ability to adapt to the people around us. And it's a lot of thought right now, and I'm think about how like to put that into words to dancers one day. And if anyone has any suggestions about that, I really look forward to hearing about it because I think it's a conversation between people. It's not really a, okay, I'm going to say this and we're going to do this type of thing. It's, hey, like, what do you feel about this? Or like, what do you think dancing well is in this greater context? So, yeah.
That was great. Lindsay, I think you're going to bring up a question.
Do you have Bruce Hamilton on the line?
Ooh.
Bruce, go ahead and turn on your video if you'd like.
Oh, I'm backlit. Sorry. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Olivia, I was curious about whether any of the lessons that you took in ballet or Irish or competitive Irish dancing get in the way of this movement style you talked about, where you just, move the way you feel. Is there a conflict there?
I think that the way that I've learned to move within English country dance has been watching other people. And I think about this a lot because when I was first truly learning and investing my time into English country dance and developing maybe a movement style, for instance, I didn't really think about training. Of course, there were natural things that happened, turn out of the feet, maybe a certain sense of like greater carriage because it had been trained into me for a long time. But I learned by watching people first and foremost. I learned by receiving other people's freedom in their movement and their expression in order to feel it for myself. And I can name so many different people that I've watched over the years. Sharon Green, Margaret Berry, Linda Wood, those are probably my top 3 people that when I see them dance, I'm like, wow, they feel something despite maybe training or any other past experience. But there's something that's happening in them that like really beckons them to move in a beautiful way. And maybe it's because they've watched other people dance too, but I've learned, I think, to feel through my dancing, sometimes accompanied by that training, because sometimes I'm thinking about it, but I'm mostly aware of the people around me and that relationship with the music that allows me to really to feel more than I'm thinking. And the thinking comes across maybe more with my interactions with people, but I think the number one thing has been allow me to feel that freedom because of how other people have felt it and how they express themselves, whether it's confidence or attitude or just the way they demonstrate, that elegance on the dance floor and that adaptability, I think.
Great, thank you, Olivia, and thank you, Bruce.
Yeah, thank you, Bruce.
I'm muted. Are we ready to move on to thing number 4?
Yes, let's do it.
Great. All right. And thanks, Bruce, for that question. That was really interesting. All right. Thing number 4. For the love of the art.
For the love of the art. All right. We can go ahead and start with the video if you'd like.
Yes, we'll get that booted up. I'm going to make an adjustment to my internet, so hopefully we'll have a better
Okay.
connection this time. All right, here we go.
I feel called to create art. Better yet, I so deeply compelled to participate in the art forms of others. Like a good friend and mentor once shared with me, you don't have to tell anyone that you're an artist. Sometimes you're the only one who knows that subtle yet radically intricate characteristic about yourself. You don't have to tell anyone that you see yourself as someone that creates something, as someone that experiments with color, sound, or movement. However, you do have to create. You have to open yourself up to the creation of others. And you must begin to examine the ways in which art speaks to you, calls to you, and beckons you to share your work with others. So let us begin with the simple question: why do you love your art?
Hi guys, my name is Addy and music is like oxygen to me. I love oxygen and I can't live without it. And it's a great honor to share my oxygen with so many people around me. So let's keep the oxygen going.
Dance has been a constant and crucial element for me. It has always helped me in every box of my life. It always brings back my life and happiness. The sound of my gungros has never failed to put a smile on my face. As I wake up every day, the thought of dancing makes my face brighten up. I can't imagine my life without the sound of my gungros or my riyas. It is the only thing which keeps me going in any catastrophe.
For me, art is about sharing and a passion together with people and for the joy of making music with others.
To me, creativity is more than just one element, more than music, dance, or visual arts. It is a way of being in the world. It is a way of finding beauty in everyday life, creating something from blankness and sharing it with those who will receive it. The arts help me see my inner and outer world with more clarity, wonder, and compassion. It is my way of communicating and expressing, my way of coping and connecting. It is my way of living. This is how I live.
I have grown up around many forms of music. Music has been there for every phase of my life. It has been a way to express myself in my emotions, explore new cultures, and celebrate my heritage. For me, when I play Irish music on my concertina, the world around me stops. And it is just me and my music, with all my worries and cares fading away as I listen to the music I am creating. I continue to explore and play music because it allows me to truly be free.
As you just heard from some of my friends and colleagues from the Irish World Academy of Music and Dance, art is a form of sustenance. Art adapts us for survival as we seek to breathe life into our everyday activities and routines. Art is rooted in the freedom of expression and the act of creation. Art gives us purpose, a deeper sense of meaning, community, and a greater appreciation for all that others find to be beautiful. Art is about sharing our wonders about the world. Art is a culmination of all that reminds us of our humanity. Art allows us to experience the world around us and the various worlds within us. And today I ask you, what do you love about your art?
I absolutely love that video. So for some background on the video, I actually made this for my undergraduate students this summer. So we were kind of doing a talk on how research influences art and how art influences research. And what is that first question about our art forms and about our research? And there's a certain love for it. There's something that we have that, develops this passion, this curiosity for analyzing something through a creative lens and an analytical lens, and what kind of provides us with that foundation to pursue such research interests. And so these were some of my amazing friends at the Irish World Academy that have each invested and researched different traditional music song and dance forms. And it's been such a wonderful opportunity to go to Ireland and to meet people that are interested in traditions that I never even heard of, let alone experienced, and yet they are living embodiments of something that they love. And for me, that's the most invigorating part of what I do, is sitting down and listening to someone talk about something that they've created, something that they love, and something that they actively invest their time in. And so I'd like to introduce my current project. And right now I'm doing a degree in arts practice research. So I'm getting to take this lens of research through myself and investigate different topics within English country dance. And so the main thing I'm looking at is the creative processes that English country dance choreographers use to craft their dances. And last week was a wonderful example with Gary Rudman, where he was sharing with us what he does to really create his dances. And of course, I was sitting there with notebook in hand, super curious, because what goes on in the mind of choreographers, to me, is one of the most fascinating things, because they're the ones responsible for orchestrating everything that we do. And that is such a unique thing to every single person. They do it differently, and they have different intentions and inspirations. And what's better to do, with your time than to listen to people talk about what they love absolutely the most. And so my friends thankfully were really open to letting me share this video with you guys today, and so thank you guys for sitting through those 4 minutes. And I think the video link was shared, so if you'd like to refer back to it, please share it with your friends. The video should be public. Maybe I'll put it public later today so people can see it. But I'd like to dive in kind of to this concept of researching our passions, and to look at English country dance as something that can be looked at through such a lens. And now there are so many people that consider themselves crafters of something. I think that we're all actively creating something as we walk through life. And there's something about English country dance that truly is created. And I think the number one thing is that we enjoy the communities that we create. And this was an idea instilled in me by one of my very first dance teachers. And English country dance as a community, as a living body of history and people moving, and this prime relationship with music and dance, it's a very interesting thing to look at through the perspective of a researcher, because so many people and so many parts are at play. And it's one thing that I've had a really hard time doing, is putting aside these preconceived notions and ideas and just listening to people and being able to say, okay, like, this is actually what's happening in English country dance, and kind of reimagining the depths of the tradition by taking a contemporary perspective and applying it to a very vast historical background. And I think that's one of the most important concepts that we can talk about within English country dance, is the breadth of the history and how it's not always the same to every single person it's discussed with. And we mentioned that briefly, and we'll probably get more to that in the after chat. But talking about how something as living as choreography, it extends over time and space. And we can even think of as older choreographers, maybe even thinking of play for time instead of as a style, play for time, and thinking about how that could be applicable today. And this reimagining of the tradition as we are stagnant and unable to move. But this is a current thing that I'm looking at and trying to understand how people create these dances, and like what is like their main motivation in it, and where do they draw inspiration. Because I think that when we're looking at our art, it's a very vulnerable piece of us, and a lot of time and care and consideration goes into it, and people love different parts of it for a reason. We have different experiences that all come into this one thing that we create ourselves. And English country dance is one of those things, because it's a dance, yes, but English country dance is an experience. It's a gathering of people. It's something that extends, I think, beyond just the limitations of the choreography. And I believe that choreographers think about that. I think they think about the people as people, and they think about the musicians, and they think about event space. And I am really excited to dive into this project and to hear more about how these different things influence their process, whether it's because they're teachers or because they have a long withstanding tradition within Scottish country dance, and like what really draws to their interests, and why do they get people moving? What are they thinking about? And if you know me, you know that I love to talk with people and I love to ask questions. So a few of you that are watching this probably should check your email in the next few weeks as I get started on this. But I think that brings us maybe to thing 5, actually, talking about people.
Great. Let's do that. Also, just so people out there know, I know we've had some questions. We haven't gotten to them yet. However, we are planning on getting to some of them at the end of this section, and certainly a lot in the after talk. And I know Olivia is hoping to talk to several people out there that choreograph dances. So, you know, pay attention and think about that. Think about what you just heard her talk about. All right, thing number 5. Of course, for the love of the people.
This was probably the hardest thing for me to really narrow down into 10 to 15 minutes. It was the first thing I thought about, and honestly, I wanted to pick 5 things that revolved around maybe 5 people, but it's so hard because I've met so many people in this dance form of English country dance, in Morris and in Irish, and all the different traditions that I've participated in, and that has been the most meaningful takeaway, and the thing that I want people to hear most about is we're a community at the end of the day. And that's something I'm learning about as we are unable to dance, is English country dance is not English country dance without the people. And of course we can do it in the comforts of our homes, but there's nothing more powerful than placing your feet on a hardwood floor that you've been standing on for your entire life, and taking hand in hand with people that you know and love. And English country dance allows us to experience a community about community in that way and on such a different level. And I'm sure everyone watching this has felt exactly what I'm talking about. English country dance is about the people because it's created for people, by people, and with people. And my teachers have been the most instrumental people in shaping my experience as somebody that's learning how to teach and to choreograph and to, you know, dip my toes in this vast world of dance research. And they have been the ones that have inspired me, you know, completely along the way. And there are so many people that I would count as teachers that might not say, oh yeah, I taught her, but everyone I interact with, whether they're dancers or musicians alike, have been my teachers. They've been the ones that have shaped my experience nearly since day one. And some people I talk with more actively, weekly basis, monthly basis, by email here and there. But it's that time that I share with people that makes my experience truly what it is. And so I'd like to share with you guys a few questions that revolve around a broader range of stories and interactions that I've had that you guys can think about as you think about your English country dance experiences and what the people mean to you. Because at the end of the day, I think we might not dance again for the next few months, maybe for the next few years, but every ounce of me wants to be able to talk with every one of you every day until then. And even after then, it's one of the most meaningful things to just be able to sit down and talk and share and learn. And so my first question, Bob Dulcimer and Carl Dreyer, my first 2 dance teachers, and we're probably gonna talk about that maybe in the after chat, really got me thinking about who my dancers are. Who am I as a dancer? And I really invite you guys to think about this. Like, who are our dancers? Who are the people that are floating around organizing dances or standing on the stage or preparing their instruments to play for 2 to 3 hours worth of music? And Carl and Bob are definitely responsible for teaching me not only how to communicate with people that have done so much for me in terms of organizing the event and inviting me, of course, but they've taught me to look at dancers and people through a different lens, because we're actively welcoming people to trust us, you know, with their time, with their talent, and with their treasures for a few hours every single week. And people are precious, people are priceless, and that interaction of person to person, at the end of the day, if they don't leave happy and wanting to come back, then I've done my job wrong as a dancer or as a teacher or whatever it is. And so they really taught me that. So the first question I'd like you to think about is, who are you dancing with? Who are you organizing these events with? And ultimately, why are you dancing? So the next question I like to dive into is actually, why do you dance? And oh, Sharon Green. Oh, she's here. Oh,
Excellent. Well, we do have a question from Sharon Green if you have a moment to answer it.
Yeah.
Great.
You
All
want
right.
to take your question now?
Sorry.
Just keep sitting there and waiting.
Yeah, that's so funny.
All right. Sharon, whenever you're ready, feel free. There she is.
I've got to stop laughing. Okay, I have started my video. The box is telling me I should start my video. I'll start it again. Hi there, kid.
Hi, Sharon.
Okay, here's my question for you. When I was caller for the Asheville Midwinter Weekend back in 2018, at one point when I was about to call a dance, instead of lining up, you came over to the stage and sat down on the stairs, looking out over the crowd. What were you looking for?
Oh, I love this question. So every single weekend, evening dance I go to, I always sit out for one or two dances. And I started doing this probably just a few months before. I sat down because I was really tired and I thought, why not sit at the stage? Why not like sit there and just be able to look at everybody and hear the music literally in the back of my head and have that look as a caller? And I remember watching everyone come towards me for the very first time for an up a double and they fell back. And then they came back up and they fell back. And I thought I would never be as happy as I am on the dance floor. I thought that there was nothing more beautiful and amazing than being a dancer until I sat there and said, there's nothing better than watching people dance. There's nothing more amazing than helping people dance. And so the reason why I sit out for these dances is usually because I'm just so curious as to what the caller, what the teacher is seeing, and I'm wondering what they're feeling. And sometimes, you have a really rockin' band and you just want to be right up next to the music and you want to be right next to the teacher and like analyze exactly what they're doing, like what they're doing really to create the effect on the room. And I like to watch, and sometimes it gets me in trouble because every time I've sat out with Andrew Shaw teaching, he usually asks me to dance, which kind of ruins the point because I'm trying to enjoy watching everybody, because there's something so cool about seeing everyone just like smiling at each other. Like, oh, it's something I've taken for granted, like I feel like we all have. But yeah, I watch people because I just love to see their faces and I love to watch people dance. Yeah.
I think this gal was a caller from the womb. What do you think, Sharon?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
When you love them, that's what you do. Thank you, kid.
Yeah.
Great question, Sharon. Olivia, do you want to continue on with thing 5? You were just about to give us that second question.
Yeah, I can run through them. I know we're probably running short on time.
No, we're fine. Don't worry.
Okay.
We've got a few more minutes.
Yeah,
Don't
so
worry.
a few of the other questions that I have been like mulling over these past few weeks is, one of them is from Sharon actually. Why are people dancing? And I think in our conversations very early on, I learned that people are dancing for different reasons. But like Sharon really changed the way that I think about those reasons and the effect that I have on people as I dance and teach. And of course, there are many stories and things I'd love to share, but that is just one of those things where it didn't really hit me until she was talking about it. Like, oh my gosh, people do dance for different reasons, and they dance differently for those reasons. And the next question is from Bruce Hamilton, is how can we invite people to dance? And I think a lot of people know that he said you can invite people to dance, you can wait for people to invite you to dance, or you can go stand on the dance floor and somebody will come to you to dance. And for me, that was such like a powerful thing of like, oh my goodness, like I don't have to wait for somebody to ask me. I have the confidence and the responsibility to ask someone else or simply just go stand. And so I invite you guys to think about, how can I, or I guess you, invite people to dance? And how can you change your mannerisms and the way that you interact with people when you invite them to dance? The next question is actually from Paul Ross that he really has got me to think about for the past few months is how do we get the people dancing once they're on the dance floor? And like, what is that interaction really like between you and of course your partner and everyone else in the set. And a lot of this came actually from Linux Assembly, not this year's, but the year before. And thinking of it as something that's like a living relationship that's going on between you and the greater set, of course. And so, like, how can you get people simply just moving? And that's a really interesting thought as we talk about things like technique and style and truly just dancing figures well and like really defining what that is. And then the last question that I will sum all this up with is actually from Colin Hume. And the biggest thing that he's really left me with is, what are we doing when we English country dance? And who are we doing it for? And these are two questions that are like really like burning in my mind when I think about English country dances. Okay, like what is English country dance? And who is involved in it? And I think a lot of the times we're like, well, English country dance is a series of figures that was created in this time by these people and this and this and this, and we recount the history like we should because we know it, right? But English country dance means something different to our communities all over the world. Regionally, we can see it. We can see it even with different people and communities in different contexts. And I think it all goes back towards that bigger question of, who is it for? Is it for you? Like, and if it is for you, like, why? And the conversations that I've had with Colin over these past few months as we've been locked away in our houses, because it has been the best time to talk to him. I don't know if you guys have ever reached out to him with a question, but he has been so helpful in helping me construct a bigger framework for all things English country dance history and just a bunch of different things that I really didn't know. And he's helped me kind of put together this timeline of events and changes and differences within the tradition, of course, but also within people. And so that's my final question is, like, what are we doing in English country dance? Truly, beyond even maybe the figures even. And who is the dance for? Who is the event for? And if it's for us, and how can we get people then to dance it and to share that history and to share what we're doing with the world and the people that we love.
That was great. And I am going to echo the words of Paul Ross that he said last month. And for those of us who worry about the English country dance community and getting older, how do we get young people in? We're not worried about where it's going with people like you around, Olivia. So thank you.
Thank you.
It's really wonderful what you're doing. It's wonderful talking with you. What's your favorite dance?
Oh, this is so hard. I know everyone has said that, but this is actually kind of funny. I was actually talking with Colin about this a few weeks ago because I was like, if anyone asked me my favorite dance, I wouldn't know what to say. And he told me that, well, you need to learn a dance a day. You need to learn it, not for the sake of memorization, but so that one day you can teach that dance. And you got to quiz yourself every single day. And so I've taken that to heart because I'm trying to learn more about dances that I don't love. Somebody loves them, and I need to be able to teach them for the people that love them and to really expand, my horizons in that sense. So I've taken up him on that challenge of learning a dance a day, and every day that dance that I'm learning is my favorite. Today I didn't learn one because I was thinking about this all day and being able to spend time with everyone. But yes, my favorite dance, no matter what dance it is the dance of the day.
What was yesterday's dance?
Yesterday's dance.
Or the last one you learned.
Yeah, this is the bad part is like sometimes there are like so many racking mind. Right now I'm working actually through Playford, so I think I'm only on like D. But there's a whole lot of really great dances in there, so yeah.
That's wonderful. Yes, there are. Absolutely, there are. We wouldn't have been doing this for hundreds of years if there weren't. All right, we're going to get to the thank yous, and we're going to post the link to the after talk. You definitely want to come in because that's where pretty much a whole list of questions that were sent in are going to be answered, and also the questions that you have for Olivia now and that came up in the chat. So thank you, Olivia Barry, for coming on. It's been great, and I love getting to know you, and I hope we stay in touch for sure. Thank you to my 5 Things team, Lindsay Verbal, Renee Turner on Zoom, Larry Hansen on Facebook, and speaking of Colin Hume, he's archived all our web chats on his website, and I believe we're posting the link. So please go and check out the list of 24 folks, 25 including Olivia, that we've had on over the last 4 months. And I want to say a big thank you to the folks who have been sending in donations to our group, the Historical Tea and Dance Society. It's very appreciated because there are operational expenses and, you know, time spent creating the shows, getting them going. So thank you. We really appreciate that so much. The Afterlink should be posting. Coming up this week and in the future, next Tuesday, I should say, next week, is Shira Kamen on August 25th. Woohoo! One of the dance world's greatest musicians. While you kick up your heels, her violin sings to your soul. A member of Roguery, as well as many early music ensembles, she's played all over the world, written the tunes to some of your favorite dances, and recorded an insane number of albums. And of course, there's the new project, Phantom. Oh, Lindsay, help me out here. What's it called?
Phantom Players.
Yes, Phantom Players. So the registration for that is now open. It's posted in the chat links. Next month, that's what's the other thing coming up is our third Saturday Historical Dance web chat on September 19th is Paul Cooper. So we're going to post the link for that. Pay attention to that. We have a lot of great people coming up. So we look forward to seeing you all week after week. In other business, from the Global Terminology Positional Calling 5 Things web chat that was on July 21st with Brooke Friendly, we have that list of no-brainer positionally called dances to send out. We will send it out to everyone who was on that registration list, but if you too would like a copy of it, email us at htds.events@gmail.com. If there are other events, please feel free to post them. For the donation, Olivia would like you to please consider making donations to the music, song, and dance programs at the John C. Campbell Folk School in Brasstown, North Carolina. We're going to post a link, and we're going to put it up on our screen. Somebody said the link for next Tuesday is not working, so stay in the chat in this, because I'm going to go seek that out and post it in the chat so we do have a correct link. I'm not sure what went wrong there, but I'm going to post it. For our exit music, it's Turning of the Hour. The composer is Rachel Bell. The band is Alchemy. Woohoo! Musicians, Rachel Bell on piano and accordion, Karen Axelrod on piano, Eric Martin, violin, viola, and foot percussion. The CD is Turning of the Hour, their latest hit. You can purchase Alchemy's CD, also entitled Turning of the Hour, along with several other wonderful CDs and offerings on Rachel's website. We're posting that, or mail a check to Karen Axelrod. You can find her on Facebook if you need that mailing address. And stick around before you leave for the after talk. I am going to go find that link, and you get to listen to this fabulous piece of music. Thank you, Olivia, and we'll see everybody in about 2-3 minutes, okay? Thank you, thank you. It's been great. And watch the chat. I am going to put up the correct link for Shira.
Bye.